Hello, Professor Kavafian. Thank you so much for being willing to join us today for this interview. I'm really excited to learn everything that you have to share. And, just jumping right in, I just thought it'd be appropriate to sort of start with, your early musical career and your early life and development. So, just right off the bat, as a young student, you juggled academic work with music, and especially for students who attend non-music specialized high schools and colleges, this can feel really difficult. So, how did you find your balance, and what trade-offs did you have to make?
Well, Chaos, I would like to say I found balance, but it was always difficult because I was also doing piano in early days. So I would come home from school and I would practice the violin first, the piano second, and then I would do homework until really late at night. It was difficult. It always is. And academic work was important to me. I wanted to have a good overall education. It's always what I stress, even where I'm teaching at Yale. I think being just a violinist is not quite enough in this world. I think you have to know a little bit more. So, how I did it was I would, especially the weeks before my lessons, I would concentrate on the instrument that I was having a lesson on. And then I would go to homework after that. And so preparation was important, being able to um, divide my time, not always equally, because the piano started taking a second turn to the violin. So I focused on the violin first, and then a little bit of piano practice, and then homework. My parents were aghast at my hours, unfortunately, just because I had to stay up late just to finish everything up. Um, it is, if you don't have early morning school, it's almost better to get up in the morning to do your practicing, because that's when your brain is a little fresher. Uh, but I had early school, so I could barely manage to get up when I needed to get up. It's sort of being compartmentalizing is really important. Knowing your limits is really important. Um, Homework, there was not a day that I didn't go prepared to school because I would be so embarrassed if I didn't have my schoolwork prepared. So I would always be, also doing that as late as it took. Um, it's just something, if you love something, if you really are, focused on something, you can do it. There are actually enough hours in the day to be able to do that.
Well, I'm sure that also that the balance you found or the hard work you put in, translated to your success as a professional as well. So paid off.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you mentioned that you switched from you started to lean towards violin away from the piano. How did you exactly? Did you just feel that you started to like the violin more? Like, was there a reason why?
Yes, definitely a reason why. The piano, I love the piano, and I have a beautiful piano here at my home, and I play it once in a while. It's so nice to have the ability to play harmony and chords and wonderful. But it's a lonely instrument because you're basically by yourself, and unless you're doing some chamber music, it's alone practicing. Whereas with the violin, I had the chance to be in an orchestra. I was concertmaster of my school orchestras wherever I went to school in high school, and it was so much more social somehow, and it was more fun. I was in a program in the Michigan Orchestra program where I was able to play orchestra and chamber music with people who became my friends. So yeah, I switched because I felt like I enjoyed the social aspect of playing the violin. And I miss the piano, to be honest, but it just uh, I came to a realization actually when I was going to Interlochen, the National Music Camp at Interlochen, and I tried out on concertos on both instruments, the violin and the piano. And that year I was able to win on both. And to me, that was okay. I think I've done what I can at this point. I've got to make a choice. So I went for the violin, and I'm glad I did. But, the piano is such a beautiful instrument.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, I used to play the piano as well, but I just found myself, just being more interested. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never considered, the social aspect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was important to me.
yeah, for sure.
Also,
Um,
in my home, my parents were musicians.
right.
My father was a violist, my mother was a violinist, and my sister also was a violinist.
Mhm.
So there was string music in the house.
Everywhere.
So everywhere,
Yeah.
from every room. So it was kind of a natural choice to go to the violin.
Right. And then, of course, as you mentioned, you won competitions at an Interlochen, both piano and violin. So, I mean, you're already operating at a really extraordinarily high level early on, um, as well as studying under, the finest professors, studying at Juilliard. So, how did you maintain your level of excellence and continue to push forward? Was it simply, sheer force of will, or was there something else?
Wow, I wish I could answer that really well. I think sheer force of will sounds like a good way to think about it. Um, I, I obviously have this desire to succeed.
Right.
So I really um, felt that the work I was putting in was getting me somewhere. I could see success.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Being, especially learning from people that in Detroit, I was studying first with my stepfather. He was not my stepfather at the time, but there was a lot of competition there.
Hmm.
He was teaching some of the best people around Detroit, so I wanted to do well for him. And then I started studying with Misha Mishakov, who is the concertmaster of the NBC Symphony and the Detroit Symphony. And he was incredibly tough on me and on all his students. And that made me, when somebody's tough on me, it makes me push harder. And I had great teachers, of course, at Juilliard. I studied with Galamian, and with the company I was keeping at Juilliard. It was at the highest level. I needed to succeed. I needed to practice hard, and it was important. So when something is that important to you, there's a direction which is undeniable. You are focused, you're doing what you think is the best way to go. So I felt that it wasn't hard to practice. My sister found it harder to practice because she was interested in, other things like going, out with the friends and things like that. I was like more focused at the time. Um, that actually rubbed off on her. So she got focused as well when she got to Juilliard. But I think that, as I said, when something is important to you, you find the willingness, the time, and the drive to push forward.
Right. That hunger is really important to just keep at it. Yeah.
True.
And I know maybe this isn't the best advice, but you hear it a lot that working harder is sometimes equated with practicing more hours. So was there ever a moment when simply practicing more stopped working?
Mm. It's kind of how you practice. You know this already, but if you're just putting in the hours, that's not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
Um, the hardest I ever practiced was when I had to learn a few new pieces, and I had concerts in New York City, and I had concerts elsewhere, and I was keeping a really, really tough schedule. Then I was practicing my 6, 7 hours a day, and I needed to do it because I was learning new pieces. I don't do that now. I focus more on what I have at the moment, and if I practice well, I don't need to put in the hours. You have to sort of understand where your weakness lies, why you're practicing, and how you practice.
Mhm.
So hours have nothing to do with it. it's more your ability to focus on what you need. And let's say it's a piece of Bach or something, and there's something wrong with the way you're approaching the chords.
Mhm.
So you start practicing that day on your approach to chords. Um, you look in the mirror, now I teach a lot, so I
Mhm.
can teach myself. It's actually extremely helpful to teach because you see how your words to others start coming back to you. And so practicing with real forethought is important. And so hours, if you're just putting in time, it's absolutely, probably wasteful. Much of that time is wasteful.
So always having an analytical, critical mind of your practice, right?
Absolutely. That sounds good to me.
Hmm. Well, now I'd like to move on to some more philosophical questions, maybe. So in the past, you've differentiated between being a violinist and versus being a musician. So what exactly is the difference between the two, and how does one progress from being merely a violinist, or for that matter, a practicer of any other instrument, to become a musician? Or is it something that's more complicated than just simple linear progress?
Um, to me, it's not that complicated. Being just a violinist or just good on your instrument is important, and that comes first.
Mhm.
Um, but it's learning about music, chaos. So the thing about, starting to really look at scores, listening to other pieces of composers you're playing, finding out what happened in their lives at that point, why they composed this particular piece of music. Those things became more important as I progressed, you know,
Mhm.
and I feel that much of my lucky success happened to also be uh, uh, the associations I had with other musicians. When I started playing with the Chamber Music Society, I was about 20, 21, 22 years old.
Mhm.
And I was playing with people that were well in their careers and 50 and 60 and 70 years old. They kind of taught me what it meant to be a true musician, what you should think about music and how you bring music to an audience, how you uh, relate to a piece of music. You intake, you learn the notes, but then finding out what the music actually means to
Mhm.
you makes you a musician. And I think my associations with the right people very helpful. So I felt like being a violinist was important and first and foremost, but um, turning into a musician, someone who didn't think of just your own part, but what was going on. Chamber music really makes you a better musician because you're constantly seeing what other people are playing, uh, how you make something work together,
Mhm.
what it means, what a line, a line in the music means, and where it's going. And I think just being more attuned to composers and knowing the score,
Mhm.
that's more like a true musician that really
Right.
starts feeling everything about the music. In fact, being a chamber musician made me a better soloist because when I was playing with orchestras, I was thinking about how my line blended with like the second oboe
Mhm.
or a cello pizzicato that I needed to think about what other people were doing around me,
Mhm.
being more, over encompassing with everything. So who knows? Am I a musician now? I hope so. I'm certainly working on it still.
Oh, I think you can be considered a musician by now. I actually wanted to focus on the score for a moment since you brought it up a couple of times. Of course, it holds enormous power, but I feel like in personal experience, especially at a pre-college level, and again, like sort of outside of conservatories, score study seems to be like relatively under-focused on. Like at least in my early experience, I was told to like look carefully at the music, but never anything with regards to anything pertinent to focus on in the piece of music. So, how do you actually approach score study, and what should young musicians be actively looking for?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I feel that score study should come early, maybe even before you look at your own part. Let's say I played just recently the Korngold piano quintet, and it was a complicated piece. And so I looked at the score quite a lot, marking what everyone else has in my part so that I knew when I was playing what I should listen for. Score study is crucial uh, to becoming a full-fledged musician because I think your part fits with others and you need to know that. What is the important line? Sometimes, in German music, it's Hauptstimme, you know already because of the H or the N in the part that the composer puts in. But sometimes you have to figure it out. So you have to look at a piece of music, find out what the important line is, find out rhythmically how things fit together,
Mhm.
and what dynamically what everybody has. Let's say the violin part might have a pianissimo where the piano part has a mezzo forte. How does that actually work? And you have to know everybody else's part.
Right.
That's chamber music. If you study orchestral scores, that's much more complicated because there's so much more. So I think, it's a good way to really study bigger scores is to have a copy of the score where you can actually highlight with a highlighting pen
Mm.
what is something you should be looking for when you're playing. Um, so sometimes, after I I was I played in a lot of orchestras and I loved orchestral music. So I love that part of my life. And sometimes I had to look at a score to figure out, oh my goodness, there is a second bassoon part that needs to come out there.
Mhm.
And so I would tell, let's say, the first violin section to play less so that that could come through. But I needed to know that. So I had to look at scores to study um, the important lines, to
Right.
study dynamically what the composer wrote.
Mhm. Right. And when the composer writes the score, of course, all of his intentions are contained within those lines of music. Sometimes it's pretty clear what they want, but other times it's not so black and white. So when the score becomes ambiguous, when the notation feels insufficient, how do you determine what the composer's intention is?
Yeah, then you have to rely on your rehearsals.
Mm.
Uh, if it's really that complicated, and the Korngold is that way,
Mhm.
rehearsals become primary ways of understanding what's going on. Then you sometimes isolate two players, maybe three players, just to hear what is this that he's saying here? What's important? What is less important? And sometimes you have to sacrifice, a line that you absolutely love and you want to play so that it's heard. You realize at a rehearsal, well, that's not the important line. You thought it was important when you looked at the score,
Mhm.
but it turns out that there are other people that have just as important a line, and you have to sacrifice your particular dynamic in order for other things to come through.
Right. And then we've been talking a lot about chamber music, just mentioning it here and there. So I just wanted to ask. I mean, you're widely regarded as one of the foremost pedagogues in the United States, especially when it comes to chamber. So I just wanted to ask, what drew you to chamber? Why did it become such a large part of your musical life?
Well, maybe because I just love the repertoire. I love the intimacy of playing with, three, four, five,
Right.
six people. I love the whole way of bringing music to the audience by discussing things very, you
Mhm.
know, sometimes
Right.
fervently with others
Mhm.
at rehearsals. And the ultimate result is so satisfying. Um, in orchestra, of course, you're looking at the conductor, and the conductor has a lot to say. Even if you're concertmaster, you have to adhere to what the conductor really wants. In chamber music, it's everybody's important, every single person in a group. And that's why sometimes rehearsals take hours longer, just because the discussions have to go on in order for everyone to understand what's going on. It's repertoire that I love, the process I love,
Mhm.
and maybe because I had the best chances in the world to play with some great people, it's absolutely my first love more than any other type of music. It's chamber music.
So, what do you think chamber music teaches you that maybe solo playing with accompaniment or, large ensemble playing doesn't? Um, do you see that chamber music is essential to developing one's musical identity and maturity?
Well, you're talking to me, and I do so much believe that that is so important. Chamber music is it's more than the music itself. It's even how you get along with others, how you say something. It's like you know,
Interdisciplinary.
being pragmatic about what you say, be
Hmm.
understanding other people's personalities, knowing that you can't go past a certain push with someone because it's
Right.
not going anywhere. It's actually living a real life
Hmm.
within chamber music, understanding other people. It's it's so much more than just the music itself. It's like how to get along with people. I think that uh, it would be wonderful if our uh, some people that I don't want to mention any names, but if people knew what it meant to play chamber music, how you get along with others, it would help the world be a more peaceful place.
Right. So again, that social aspect, right? Right. Definitely. Um, so when it comes to having these discussions, playing chamber, of course, conflict inevitably come up. So how do you navigate those, especially when people feel very, very strongly about their own opinion?
Well, you have to be sensitive to others. You have to understand, as I said, you have to sort of know the person you're talking to and know that, you've asked somebody to play softer, let's say, and it's still too loud in your opinion. You have to sort of understand that they're coming from a different place. They feel their part is important, and know that you can't keep asking for the same thing. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
So uh, you have to sacrifice. A lot of it is sacrificing, and but it's in a way for the good of the whole, because it's not just feeling that you've lost out on a discussion. It's so that you can bring this music to the public in a way that they will understand what you've discussed and what is important.
Hmm.
So how you navigate through tough situations is kind of being sensitive to others, knowing how far to go and how to stop asking. And maybe, like you say, okay, we agree to disagree here. Let's go on to something else. That kind of thing. That happens so often because musicians, especially certain very, very, very established musicians, have an opinion,
Right.
and they need to have an opinion in order to, feel secure about what they're doing and what they're saying in their music. So you have to understand that you could butt heads,
Hmm.
and it's important to understand when it's important to stop butting heads.
Right.
So it's all human, knowledge of the human brain. As I have told many people, that if I wasn't a musician, I probably would have gone into psychology because I love that part and I've did some coursework at even at Juilliard. They had courses, and I took those courses because I was interested in that part of education, how
Hmm.
what psychology plays a part in everything that we do.
Do you think understanding psychology makes it easier for you to interpret the music?
Well, I don't know if I would go that far. I would say probably understanding psychology makes it easier during rehearsals to
Okay. Okay.
understand other people and to know what makes up somebody else's psychology, and what you're like, and understanding yourself, how fervently you believe in something is only good to a certain extent. If it's not going uh, where you want it to go, knowing when to stop.
Right.
And
Right.
that's like everything in life, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
you can
it
relate it
is.
to everything.
Right. You have to understand yourself, you have to understand others, you have to understand the music as well.
Yep,
Everything,
all of
right.
that, all of the
Yeah.
above.
Um, so now, perhaps related to chamber music and having an opinion and knowing when to give or take, you've spoken about your experience with Felix Gallimer and his teaching to you regarding the importance of having your own musical voice. So could you articulate what exactly this voice is?
Wow, it takes a long time to really know what your voice is,
Hmm.
and it takes a lot of input from others. Um, because it's not that all of a sudden you're born with this. I mean, you need education, you need great teachers,
Right.
you need people that really, like Felix Gallimer, somebody that knows music intimately and has played dozens and dozens of concerts and pieces that you're just playing for the first time, let's say.
Mhm.
Um, what an incredible experience it is to be in the same room with someone like that. I mean, he's one of so many, but he was a big force at Juilliard for me in chamber music. And I took chamber music with him.
Right.
I took chamber music with, Robert Mann too, the
Hmm.
Juilliard Quartet. I had great, great input from many people, but um, the idea of finding your own voice comes from, let's say, from playing, let's say, the Bach G minor solo sonata many times,
Hmm.
teaching it many times, understanding what the notes mean, how he how he wrote. We have the facsimiles, which is very important, and I have come to believe that certain things that the way Bach writes has become understandable to me. So that then I start thinking, okay, this is the way I feel that I want to play it this way because I understand the score. I understand how he wrote it. So it becomes sort of personal. It's your it's your way of expressing, and I guess that's a voice. But it comes from study and it comes from other people teaching you things. Um, so it's complicated, but it is crucial because there are many great violinists in the world, aren't there?
Right. Right.
Many great violinists. Um, and I respect their violin playing so much. But sometimes I think their voice is not something that I would like to be believing in.
Hmm.
So I feel a little bit like that means that I have my own way of thinking
Right.
something.
Right.
And I'm hearing some great playing, but I'm not agreeing personally with how they're making a phrase work, let's say, or um, how they're voicing certain things, especially in Bach. All the notes are important, but some notes are more important than others. So, and if they're playing as if everything is important, it's not the way I would like to hear it. I would like to hear the hierarchy of importance that I feel Bach wrote in his, especially in his unaccompanied music. So I feel I'm talking about Bach, but it's about anything. Uh, finding your own voice really means studying something, playing it, performing it, getting input from so many people, and then saying, "Oh, but I think this way," um, and not to be dogmatic about it in any way, but feeling that it's like believing in your voice.
Right.
Sorry.
So this is something that's always in flux, always changing with the
Always,
composer, with the life
always.
experience, everything. Right.
Everything comes into it, chaos. Everything. What you put into it, the work you put in is just a small
Small
part of it.
fraction. Right. And do you think the audience, regardless of whether they know the intricacies of whatever piece you're playing, they can sense that you have your own recognizable voice as compared to something that's maybe a little bit less distinct?
That would be wonderful if I could believe that, but I'm not sure. I think so much, of the audience. I play a lot at the Chamber Music Society at Lincoln Center, and I've done that since
Mhm.
1971. And there are people in the audience that have heard me over and over and over again, and they think they know how I'm going to sound on a certain piece of music. They feel that they know my sound, they know the way I play something. During the centennial of Mozart's, I was playing a lot of Mozart. And
Mhm.
so people thought, oh, she's good at Mozart, only because I kept on playing Mozart at the society that one year, so many pieces. And I'm doing Mozart again coming up in February. I'm doing a sonata, B flat K454, and I've changed the way I play that piece.
Right.
So it's and is it my voice? Well, now it's my voice right now,
Mhm.
but it could change in another 5 years. Maybe I come into a situation with a different pianist,
Right.
um, and they help me sort of change the way I'm thinking about a certain phrase, not the whole thing, of course,
Yeah.
but um, so the people that you connect with, the people that you perform with, could have a lot to do with your flexibility in your own voice. And I think you have to be flexible. My goodness, if you only think one way is the way, you're not going to get along with too many people. And so I think it's something that you have to think, yes, this is my voice, this is my sound. But I could hear it that way. I could understand that way of thinking about a certain phrase. Um, so yeah, it's mostly when you're playing chamber music. When you're playing solo works, you probably have a different way of thinking than you do when you play chamber music, because then you're by yourself thinking about this, how you want to bring something across in a solo piece of music. In a sonata, it's a duo, so the pianist has a lot to say. And you have to be open to
Yeah.
all of that, especially if you respect. Hopefully, you respect the people you're playing with.
Yeah. So again, finding striking that right balance, of course,
Oh yeah,
always
always,
important. Yeah.
always.
Now I'd like to switch gears a little and focus on your teaching, your pedagogy. So of course you've had many years of experience with professorship. So how has your teaching philosophy changed over time? Are there like certain core principles you find that every student benefits from focusing on, or is your approach always, more individualized to the point where you feel like repeating the same things with different students isn't applicable?
Very much so. I mean, what you just said is one of my philosophies of teaching, that it is an individual that you're dealing with. And again, psychology plays a lot, it's a big part of that. But each person needs a different kind of focus.
Hmm.
There are some students that have phenomenal technique, it's amazing. And I'm like, oh, how did you do that? Can you teach me that? But they need something different from me. And hopefully I'm able to give that to them. And as well as some people who really don't have a maybe good a facility, I put them on Gavinier etudes
Hmm.
uh, and don't etudes and Rode. And because these are great players already. At Yale has a very, very high standard, but I find that, well, I think they're not shifting properly.
Hmm.
So I put them on etudes that teach them that.
Right.
I came from a couple of different schools. The last one being Galamian. Um, this was where everybody did the same fingering
Yeah.
and same bowing,
Hmm.
right? Everybody.
Right.
And
Right.
in fact, he would pick up on the slightest change that you would make. And I would say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't use my fourth finger there. I'm sorry." But he would pick up on it. And so everybody did the same thing. That philosophy goes a certain way, and then after that, not everybody has the same kind of technique and
Right.
ability to produce a sound, but he was really good at just the basic stuff,
Hmm.
which really helped me a lot. But now, every, all my students, I give them fingerings if they ask for it or if something isn't working properly. But these are graduate students I'm talking about. So they already have a certain facility and ability to understand, um, you know, what makes their playing right.
Right.
So I feel very strongly, and I love it when two people that are playing Tchaikovsky concerto have totally different ideas and totally different fingerings. I love that because I know they're using their own brain. And so this is something that my philosophy has changed from the Galamian days to now, where I really would like to think that each student has their own special abilities, and I hone that
Mhm.
instead of insisting on something else. You'll have to ask my students. Some of them will say, "Oh yeah, she makes me do this or she makes me do that," but only if it's helpful to them, you know. So my philosophy is, let me hear you do this, and if it's working, I'm going to leave you alone. I'll help you with other parts of, the music making, but if something is working, I'm not going to bother changing. And I always say that. That seems to be working. It's not what I do. And then of course they say, "Well, what do you do?" So then I give them my fingerings or my ideas or my bowings to. So I really think that you have to teach each person as as a whole. They are who they are, and you have to teach them how to get better, whether it's in music making or in technical
Hmm.
ideas, in coloring. I love to teach students how to have a better range in coloring,
Hmm.
because you don't want to hear someone just play this way, and it may be impressive to a certain extent, but it's not going to sell tickets. So
Right.
I think everybody has to be taught um, in their own capacities, and hopefully what you're doing is giving them more ground and more foundation that they can really
Right.
expand on knowledge.
Right. And not only do you teach in this comprehensive manner, you also have to perform and give master classes all around the world of the highest order. So how do you manage these roles without letting one be potentially detrimental to the others?
Well, well, you have to take each situation as a whole. You have to look at
Mhm.
where you're giving the master class. If it's at a very high level school, for instance,
Yeah.
or in Europe, someplace, or in Asia, you have to understand what what makes these people tick as
Hmm.
quickly as you can, and that's the trick. You have to be instantaneously understanding what you're doing and what they're doing and where you are. Um, Many times I go to teach a master class, and and I see something that I would think, my goodness, who taught you that? But of course, I don't say that. I kind of say, well, I don't want to go against your teacher right now, but let me see if I can help you play this phrase better. So it's all a matter of, I have to bring up psychology. You have to understand who you are, who they are, and where you are.
Hmm.
Uh, so each situation is its own entity.
Right. A little bit of being a diplomat. Right. And this next question, I'm sure many of our listeners would be really interested in. So, for students considering majoring in music at institutions like Yale or Juilliard, both of which you're really familiar with, beyond the prestige, what does the daily life of a music major look like? Are there things which students or even you have come to find the most surprising?
Well, I'm teaching in a place where um, there is this degree. It's called the BAMM/MM degree, and
Uh-huh.
it's a 5-year program. They have to get into Yale College first,
Right.
and they have to win the audition on the graduate level. I have 2 students right now. I've taught 2 others that have graduated and have done really well.
Hmm.
Um, and I find that that degree makes everyone, it makes me absolutely, it boggles my mind because they have to be intelligent enough and well focused enough to be able to go to Yale College on a regular basis. It's not like the easy courses or something.
Yeah.
They're taking chemistry, they're taking all sorts of things. So it boggles the mind to me that they come into each lesson totally prepared.
Hmm.
How does that work? You should interview them.
Good idea.
And I know I can tell you from my experience with teaching one of them that she gets up very early in the morning and she does her violin practicing early.
Hmm.
Uh, she spends a tremendous amount of time in her uh, uh, homework and the classes after school. And then if she has energy at 9 o'clock, she'll play again the violin. So that's something that, that
Right.
this this takes tremendous energy,
Hmm.
and focus, and desire to
Right.
succeed. And so that has always boggled my mind. That there are other times where I am so incredibly impressed with, I've worked with a student, let's say, there was a student that I worked with this year that I've had. This is the second year that he's been there. And we worked on the Elgar Concerto.
Mm.
And it's a piece of music I've never performed, but I've taught it a few times. So I kind of know the intricacies of the piece. Um, I know, for instance, where the orchestra is going to completely overwhelm the soloist unless the soloist does something like change a bowing or make it a little freer or do something to be able to come through. But I went to the concert and my mouth dropped open. It was so good. And that's when what I felt so proud of this person, and I felt proud of myself too, because I felt that I was helpful in making this performance come alive. But I went backstage afterwards. I remember saying, I don't think you have to come to any more lessons. I think you get it all. Of course, that's not true because the next lesson wasn't the same. But but at that moment, it was so satisfying and so uplifting to see that your work and their work really came together. And it seeing a student do well is better than my doing well to me.
Mm.
I'm so overly, I think most teachers feel that way, by the way, from what I've heard, um, that your work with them really pays off when they do well. And all you want is their success. All you want is for them to succeed in this. It's a tough life,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of determination, a lot of concentration, a lot of focus, all the things that I feel that I had to have when I was their age. So
Mm.
I'm completely understanding of where they're coming from, and
Yeah.
um, so again, by using the right kind of tone of voice or right encouragement,
Hmm.
and also being tough, because I know that when my teachers were tough on me, it made me better.
Right.
So I I'm not too much of a softie, although sometimes I think, oh, I let them get away with that. I shouldn't have. Anyway, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Always psychology, psychology, psychology. Right.
Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I, it would be great if all professors
Musicians studied. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in psychology, because so much of it, and I feel like a lot of people are good at it just because they've taught for so long.
Hmm.
So,
Experience. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I know it's been a while, so I'd like to conclude our portion of the interview with a couple of questions that are more future oriented. So, contemporary music. I know you've premiered several contemporary works, um, and I'm really actually interested in your premiere of Forever and Ever, the concerto for the computerized violin and orchestra. So, for those unfamiliar with the concept, what exactly is a computerized concerto?
Well, that was maybe one of the hardest pieces of music I have played.
Mm.
First of all, it was on an electric violin, so it was not my violin,
Uh,
but it was plugged in to several computers. And and the bow uh, had wires around, and so
mhm,
let's say when I moved my bow slowly, it would make a certain kind of sound. When I moved it fast, it would do things like things
mhm.
like that. It was an incredible piece of music. I did record it, and it was hard to record because of all of the computerized
Right.
situations. But a computerized piece of music is when how Todd Mackover, this was the composer,
Mhm,
put this piece together, was he recorded myself,
mhm.
uh, he recorded notes. Yo-Yo Ma had a lot of certain notes,
Right.
like particular notes that he
Mhm.
recorded. Kim
Yeah.
Kashkashian, a few notes here and there, and he would combine those um, to make the bow sounds
Interesting.
from other instruments. Like it wasn't just the violin. The thing that made it really difficult was that the electric violin doesn't have a rim,
Uh-huh.
where you can put your
Right.
thumb
Yeah.
and play in the higher positions.
Yeah.
So that was really tough. When it's
Yeah.
not like your instrument where you can hang on, I couldn't hang on. I had to figure out how to keep my thumb around the neck as much as possible without having that rim.
Yeah.
But that was a piece um, that really it sent me into, uh, you know, I remember thinking, I don't know if I can play all these notes. Um, in the end, I played it with the first time uh, with Hugh Wolf in St. Louis. St. Louis. No, no, I'm sorry. It was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it was everybody thought, what is going on? I had put in so much work for this piece of music, and I saw that the end result was amazing.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad I did it. It took a lot. It took a
Yeah.
lot of work. It
Sure.
took a lot of like tears and frustration and but sometimes those moments are worth it. Are
Very
worth it.
gratifying in the end.
Very much
Got
so.
it. Well, ending on this last forward-looking note, related to technology, um, AI is playing a larger and larger role in most sectors. So do you think music is a field which stands to benefit, and are we already seeing successful integration of AI into the music industry?
Yeah. I am not well versed in AI, but I
Yeah.
am amazed by it.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure in the end if I believe that it's going to be
Hmm.
the way things go from now on. AI doesn't have a soul.
Right.
You can't put you can't do that. You
Right.
can't put the heart in that. You can make timings work. You can do it. You can do all sorts of modulations. You can do so much, but can you actually make
Replace the artist
people,
with the,
oh yeah,
yeah,
can you make the AI a musician? I don't
yeah.
know. I'm not sure. I hope that it helps us understand things, but I think AI is incredible for science and development.
Right.
Um, uh, I worry that many students do a lot of chat GPT things that I worry about that. But in the end, I'm not sure it's going to be the future of music. I
Right.
think it's going to be the hopefully the future of science and development of cures and things that it can do. And it's amazing. And sometimes I'm drawn to some of these reels that I go on my phone and I'm like, oh my gosh, is that real? But you have to sort of doubt everything now that you
Right.
see.
Right.
That can't be
It's
real.
crazy now.
Yeah. Sometimes I hear a musician, an instrumentalist, absolutely perfectly as executing arpeggios and everything. And I think, is that real or is that AI? As I said, I think in the end, I don't think it's the future of music or musicians. For musicians, I so believe in playing from your heart,
Mhm.
bringing something more special from yourself, finding your own voice, uh, bringing something that I when I see audiences tear up, and when I'm sitting, let's say I'm sitting in the audience and people are tearing up from what's going up on stage, that's when I know someone's connecting, and the player is connecting, the composer is connecting, and I'm not sure AI can do that.
Yeah. Right. Let's keep that uniquely human aspect of art, right?
Absolutely, it would be wonderful. I believe in it so strongly.
Right. Yes. Well, thank you so much for such an insightful, interesting conversation. I'm sure all of our viewers will really enjoy this episode. I mean, I just learned so much. There is so much to talk about. So, thank you so much for coming on with us again. We're honored to have you with us,
Oh,
and we
you're
hope to
very
have you on again soon. Thank you so
thank,
much.
thank you, Chaos.
Thank you.